Okay, good morning. It's that time of year again. Appreciate your patience as we go over this morning and try to answer all your questions, give you as much information as we possibly can about the upcoming fiscal year budget. As always, I'd like to start off by thanking the finance team, Mr. Schwab and his team, and especially Angela, who does all the grunt work to make sure all this gets put together, and sometimes it's quite a challenge. So we appreciate her and her long hours and hard work to make this come together. And of course, all the department heads as we all go through a stressful time over a few days to make this happen. So the first thing I want to talk about are the areas that are important that will affect this year's budget. In this year's budget, we have proposed a minimum of a $500,000 tax decrease. We'll talk about that as we go forward. We have proposed to implement option B of the Carl Vincent classification and compensation study that we'll talk about as we go forward. We're continuing our substandard structure elimination and our code enforcement initiatives. We will talk about the continued decline, or what we propose or project is the decline in our property tax values, our continued decline in our local option sales tax amount and collections, decline in our electric transfer. Good news, solid waste had some income for the second year in a row, and we'll talk about that transfer. And we've got several upgrades to our water and sewer department, several analyses and upgrades that we'll talk about in there. So those are the things that really have the major impact on our budget this year. Let's start off talking about revenues. Our overall revenues will exceed our expenditures by $4.8 million this year. General fund only expenditures are over our revenues by $8.5 million. That's up slightly from $8.4 million last year. Our total general fund revenue is pretty stable. As you can see, without transfers, we're only talking about $12,500 difference in our general fund revenue this coming year as opposed to last year. Our property tax proposal is down $260,000, and that includes the 0.5 mil tax reduction. A mil of tax is about $520,000, so that's a $500,000 tax reduction that we're proposing in our budget. I say about because it kind of depends on where the digest comes in. As you know, we propose our budget this time of year. Every year we don't get the digest until fall, so we're kind of projecting and hoping as to what the digest will come out to be. Right now, our millage rate is 8.6. 5% reduction would take it to 8.1. I hope if the digest holds steady, we'll just come out in an even 8 mills for our taxes, or that's what we're looking forward to anyway. But we have projected those property tax to go down a little over $250,000 for a $500,000. Our motor vehicle tax is up $425,000. As you know, last year we really didn't know what the TATV was going to do with our motor vehicle tax. We're actually way ahead of our proposal for this year. So based on tracking, we're looking at our motor vehicle tax being up quite significant for next year. However, that does have an impact on our local option sales tax, as that sales tax on vehicles goes into TAVT rather than the local option sales tax. Right now, our loss at 83 1/3% of the year gone, we're about at 80% collections on our loss on this fiscal year. 2013 actual, we were like 3.4 million, so we're a little bit behind, and we're projecting it to be $100,000 down this coming year. Revenues, our license and permits, we're looking at just a very slight increase. Our fines and forfeitures are down a good bit as we've been tracking those over the year. We budgeted $662,000 for this year, and that's going to be down. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we were budgeting $1 million for fines and forfeitures. Through April, we're not even at 50% yet.
Are you going to reinstate the red light cameras?
As soon as that construction is over with up there and we can put that camera back, it will change a little bit as to how it's, where it's projected to take pictures, because now that right turn on red is now permissible from the far right lane, so we've got to make some adjustments up there. But yes, ma'am, we're planning on reinstituting that. As I said, our total general fund revenue's pretty stable at $12,000, up just slightly, and our total general fund expenses also are fairly stable at $148,000. Looking at all funds, projected revenues are up about $4 million from what we projected in the current budget year. Our expenses are up about $3.7 million from what we projected. Now, this is total revenues, which includes SPLOS, MSP, CDBG, CHIP, TADS. That's all inclusive of all of our revenue funds. Looking at expense highlights, our capital requests this year were just slightly over $15 million. In the current budget year, it was $7.5 million, but keep in mind that SPLOST is over $3 million of that. Our Potato Creek wastewater treatment plant upgrade is almost $5 million of that. CDBG is $679,000 of that. So, and 1888 mill sewer upgrade is $470,000. So when you take all those out, because they're funded through other means, our equipment that we've got to fund is $5.8 million, and that's only up from $5.4 million in this current fiscal year. So that's up about $391,000. Personnel, we talked about the Carl Vinson Institute classification and compensation study. That's been ongoing over the last 2 years. They gave us a couple of options, option A, as they referred to it, and option B. Option A was actually a 2% above the mean increase, so that our salaries would be 2% above our competitors. Option B was at the mean, meaning that they would be at the average of our competitors. What we are proposing in this year's budget is option B with a slight modification. That slight modification is that we have proposed slightly increasing the starting pay for police officer. Our police officer starting pay has been a little bit below the average. Option B from Carl Vincent had it even slightly lower than the average, because what they took was the average for more of the rural agencies in our area like Pike and Butts and Lamar. However, we do compete with the South Metro, the Fayettes, the Claytons, and the Henrys. So we're losing about a 10%. We have about a 10% turnover rate in the 3 to 5 year category of police officers. So what we did with the starting pay of police officers, we upped it slightly, about 4%, to be a little more competitive there. That was the only change we made to option B. Option B modified is costing us $459,353. Of that option B, that will mean that about right around 200 of our 460 employees will see an increase, either due to a classification increase, because Carl Vincent took those classifications and put people where they needed to be in the organization, and then to avoid compression. If you recall, when they did their presentation, to avoid compression, those employees with longevity also got a small increase to avoid that compression. So that's the total cost of option B modified. Now, that does mean that over 200 of our employees will not see an increase because they didn't fall into that classification or compensation area that needed increasing. So we did not budget an across-the-board increase. Only the Carl Vincent study was instituted. There's
What are some of
no...
those employees that would not...
I'm sorry?
What are some of the employees that would not see an increase? Which areas?
It's pretty varied, and I've got a spreadsheet if you want to look at individual personnel. Some of our electric department journey line workers are not seeing an increase, our apprentices, but we went back in, what was it, Bill, 2 years ago and gave them a step adjustment, so that really wasn't needed. Most of the employees that did not get a raise were management level and above. Most of the ones who did were the lower level employees who really hadn't been kept up to the mean rate.
Does that mean Public Works and solid waste were mostly the ones that got the increase?
I would say that is pretty accurate, but there again, it depends on their longevity and what pay grade they were at and whether or not they were impacted by compression. So yeah, just glancing at the solid waste, a lot of those did get increases. A lot of our equipment operators got increases. Our water plant operators, water distribution, our maintenance workers, lab workers. And like I said, I have this spreadsheet if you want to look at individual. It's several pages, so I didn't want to go over the whole thing, but it's here for you to look at.
Is there any way you can break that down by departments?
This spreadsheet is broken down by department, yes.
Thanks.
As I said, there's no insurance increase for employees this year. Our health insurance did not increase for the second year in a row. So some of the things that we put in place to battle those insurance increases have worked. Our dental increase went up just a tad, and we just absorbed that, so it was no cost to our employees. I think overall it was about an $8,000 impact. We maintained our 401 match up to 2% as we have for several years. Our pension plan that we fund increased to $92,000. Our OPEB that is we're funding fully increased a little less than $10,000. Also, from a personnel standpoint, really the only change we made in personnel, the archivist went from a part-time position to a full-time position. Of course, as you know, there have been some personnel changes in this fiscal year that impacts next fiscal year. The recent change in the transportation planner that we contracted out. As you know, we contracted out building inspections. We did leave in the budget one position for building inspector. Since the contract for building inspections is fairly new, we wanted to be safe and leave one position in there to kind of see how things go. We might want to look at filling that position, especially when it comes to our substandard housing inspections. Because we have to pay the contractor. If it's any inspection other than those that are funded by permit fees, we have to pay those out of pocket. So we're going to look at the feasibility of hiring an inspector versus paying them a contract price for inspectors. But we left one position in there for a building inspector. And of course,
I thought we shared with the county the cost of the archivist.
Yes, ma'am. They pay half of the total budget for the archives.
So,
I mean, we fund it and then we bill them for half of it.
so we will be building the county for $17,000 plus.
We'll be billing them for half of their total budget. Yes, ma'am.
Do we provide the benefits?
Yes, ma'am. The archivist is a city employee, and we fund that entire department, and then we bill the county for half of it. They've agreed to continue paying for half of it. And of course, we made some changes this past year in solid waste with our yard waste contract and some supervisory roles there just recently that we've made changes to, but those were things that actually occurred in this fiscal year. This is the only change for next fiscal year. Management services, that budget decreased a little bit, almost $59,000. Your budget went down about $35,000. Mine went up about $8,000. The city attorney stayed the same. Elections decreased because we don't have an election in this coming fiscal year.
Well, I have a question. When you said the commissioners decreased, it decreased as to what you put in, or we didn't use. What are you saying?
No, it decreased what we proposed last year this time to what we're proposing this year this time. Decreased by $35,000. And if you're interested, I can pull that up and see exactly. We can pull it up and see exactly where that number changed if you want to look at it.
But later on, I read that we still have our $100,000 contingency, so nothing changed for contingency.
And I guess that's what I'm talking about, the contingency.
Yeah,
benefits for benefit, personnel benefits,
Yeah,
things like
okay.
that changed with. I was just looking at that.
Yeah, the land bank, which is in there, that's right, thank you. The land bank, which is in y'all's budget, their budget decreased about, I think it was about $27,000 or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
What did you say?
The land bank went from $157,000 down to $125,000. So that was the bulk, and it happens to be included in y'all's budget as a contribution.
$191.
Okay, we're good? Fireworks we're funding, there's the land bank, I hadn't quite got to it yet, so there's the answer to that. From $157,900 to $125,000 is where it went down. UGA Griffin, the same amount as always. Historical preservation, the same amount as always, and contingencies, $100,000. So that was the main change in y'all's budget.
How much have we used of contingency as we go into the end of the year?
You know what that balance is? We can look it up for you right quick. While he's doing that, I'm going to move on and we'll come back and answer that question. Administrative services budget went up $118,000. The accounting department, the purchasing department, HR budgets actually went down slightly. IT went up a little bit, risk went up a little bit, and the director, we put in $100,000 for contingency for that software that we talked about a couple meetings ago. Central services went down $136,000 because last year we budgeted for the demo of the old city hall and the disposal of all that, which that project is complete. We also had some maintenance in the parking deck last year. That project's also complete, so that budget went down. The police department budget decreased $246,000. Even though we're increasing the salaries in that department, their total expense went down. We are proposing to replace 6 patrol cars with cash at $182,700, and a live scan fingerprint system needs upgrading at $25,000. And court went up a little bit because of our number of inmates that we're housing continues to go up, so we budgeted a little bit more money for inmate cost. You still looking for that balance?
are we on tennis courts? We did one, didn't we?
We did the double courts on the lower side, and we're in the process of getting a price to do the upper courts at this point. And we hope we'll be able to roll some money over if we can't get it done before the end of the budget year to go ahead and do those upper courts. But we'll get the answer to that contingency and get you a new number on that. The fire department expense went down just slightly. We do have replacement of a service vehicle there. I believe that's a pickup truck. Their thermal imaging camera needs replacing, and they, at this point, do not have a software program for incident reporting, so that's included in the fire department budget.
Right. Let me ask you about their personnel.
Okay.
Their salaries remain stable?
Pretty much.
Which salaries? I didn't hear you.
The fire
Fire
department.
department, public safety is what I was thinking.
There are a few increases there. Looks like about half and half. Looks like about half the department. Again.
Well, I know we have a fine department there, and we certainly want to keep it that way too, and as far as salary levels and everything.
Yeah, mostly on the firefighter level. Of course, the ranking officers, there's a couple of those guys that saw an increase, but it's mostly in the firefighter. And we do have a good fire department, and we experience very, very little turnover
Right.
in the fire department. Okay, Public Works, their total expenses went up $226,000. They need a new dump truck, which, as you can see, is not cheap. We have some bridge and culvert repair proposed, which again is not cheap. And we have a park.
Yay! 2 parks.
We have 2 parks, but we have one park here proposed over in the Chapel Street area, and of course the park that we're committed to over at the Thomas property. That hopefully will be a little cheaper because we're doing it in conjunction with the new line department building over there, so hopefully we can coordinate some of that so it's a little cheaper. The sign shop has some wayfinding signs that we're budgeting there as we continue with our branding and signage. Those are proposed for the downtown and coming into downtown area. Total Public Works capital is $454,000 this year in capital expenses.
Do we have examples of what those signs are going to look like?
Yes, ma'am, they're in the branding package.
I'm not sure I still have the branding package. Okay.
We can get it to you.
I find the colors are difficult, just kind of like with our business cards. You know, we had to have them redone. I think that the green is fine, but the other color is just not, it doesn't give enough emphasis to whatever it's saying. It's hard to read. So I would like to think that our directional signs are going to be very legible with a good color so that people who are colorblind or have other vision problems will be able to read them.
Okay, we'll get you a copy of that whole branding package again. All right, Public Works, we've got SPLOST projects. We're projecting $2.7 million coming in, 3.1 going out. We've still got those 2 intersections that are on schedule, the North Hill Street intersection, the first one, and the second one that we'll pay half of. And then, of course, the revenue doesn't match expense because we're banking SPLOST money. So we have a fund balance in SPLOST money. Planning and Development, their expenses actually decreased for a couple of reasons. We'll go into that. Substandard housing, we budgeted for 35 structures this year. We've been budgeting for 50. I don't know that we've actually ever made 50 out of our budget, but now that we're partnering with the land bank, And with the Housing Authority, we're actually getting more structures down through our partnership. And of course, since we're funding the land bank, we're actually paying for those anyway. So we have a little bit more realistic goal there for substandard housing. Of course, we contracted our building inspections, so that saved us some money there. 95% of our permit fees is about $97,850. And as I mentioned earlier, we kept that one building inspector position in case we need it. And of course, code enforcement was deleted from development services and went to public safety. So that also accounts for some of that decrease in their budget. On the wastewater side, their revenue's up just slightly. The expenses are up just slightly. Renewals and extensions, $100,000. Relocation of the mains, $125,000. The culvert replacement that we continue to work on at AZ Kelsey, $300,000. And I think that'll finish up that project, won't it? That'll be the last of that project. Cabin Creek filter and circuit repair, and of course that 1888 Mills upgrade that we talked about. Hopefully the bulk of that being paid for out of the EIP grant. The Potato Creek expansion is almost $5 million that's in there. So if you add all that up, the wastewater capital is over $6 million. But as we talked about, several of those items are funded. On the water side, the revenue went up about 1%, and I think this was due to our adjustment during the year. That's why these revenues, our adjustment was right at 1.2 or something, I think it was for this year. Residential revenue's down a little bit, commercial and industrial's up, and our wholesale revenue is down because almost all of our wholesale contracts, their calculation went down this year. Probably going to go back up next year with the capital expenses, but this year it went down just slightly. And water wastewater is keeping a little over $300,000 that's restricted because, as you know, we capped the water wastewater transfer to the general fund at $1.8 million a couple of years ago. At least I thought we did. There was some discussion about that being 10% rather than 1.8 million. Staff understood it was 1.8, so that's what we capped it at. If you want to discuss that, we can.
If it works, leave it alone.
I thought when we originally talked about the rate was a 15% cap on electric and a 10% cap on water wastewater transfer, and it works the way you've got it, but it means that we'll continually, as our revenues grow, we won't have that as much money to transfer as that opportunity.
I think we should look at down the road. I mean, I think we should come back to it and have that discussion because, like I said, when you have a customer that goes away from electric and water picks it up like 1888 Mills does, but then we have no real change in the revenues between the two funds to reflect that it really just shifted. You know, we get kind of limited by a flat amount.
Yeah.
Last Friday, we might do a roof, consider that somewhere around 33 new roofs, probably
Well, and of course, we know that a lot of that ends up going to the debt service that we're picking up to pay for anyway, but a flat amount versus a percent doesn't really take into account any changes like stuff that might occur in the profitability of water side, so something we can look at.
It's a little inconsistent if you're doing a percentage on one and a flat on the other.
Right, and I appreciate the figures on the insurance. Did you get it? On the people who took advantage of the service agreement? If we chose not to do that, would we refund their money? How would that work?
we're gonna talk
Yeah,
about that
I
next.
think that, yeah, I think after we get through with that, we'll go into that.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see it on there. That's the reason I asked about it during this time.
Okay, water expenses are up because we've got a few things going on with water this time. The Simmons plant, as you know, is quite old. It needs an evaluation. Dr. Keller says it needs to be painted. We've got $100,000 for renewals and extensions. Heads Creek Pump Station needs to be evaluated. Raw water mains need to be evaluated. Tank inspection and repair. Water line replacement out at 1941 and a relocation at Roba Zatella, $674, almost $675,000. Do you want to touch on all these evaluations you've got budgeted?
It's a lot of money to evaluate something.
Very quickly. Dr. Keller's all about some evaluations, so.
Quickly is, we don't have
Rubber
the
glove,
drive that
though.
we had on Clifford Pump Station, that all of a sudden, the equipment beyond being able to service the water system. So all those items up there are from 1929 forward, and one line in the pump station at Head Creek, 1964. What our goal is to have a 20-year plan for replacement of certain activities on those things. And the other thing is, we plan on having the water summit next year with the wholesale customers, so we understand what's gonna happen with the wholesale water rates in the future. They've been having a problem contacting Kenny and myself, saying, well, look, we just spent $5 million, why? And so this will give us an opportunity to our customers to understand what their rates could look like in the future, so we can replace some of the water out.
I guess it's just a little surprising to someone like me that costs $195,000 to evaluate a plant.
A lot to it. I got 7.
Can I bid on that?
Not on your life.
I'll do it for 180, no questions asked.
And resign. It's broke.
Hopefully it'll come in a little less than that. Okay, let's look at the electric department. Our revenues increased 3.9%, based on our little increase that we had a while back. Our charges for service is right at 3%. Our off-system sales are projected at $600,000. MEAG Generation Trust is restricted. That's $2.3 million, which was not calculated into that 15% transfer this year, which made our transfer go down. The transfer from the electric to the general fund, $7.9 million. It was right at 8. So it went down 80-something, almost $90,000 from last year. Electric department has restricted earnings of $102,000. Their expenses are up 2.6% because of the wholesale power cost increase. 91.3% of their expense increase is due to the wholesale power. And you can see how that's gone up in our budget in the last 2 years. In fiscal year 14, it went up 4.3%. In fiscal year 13, it was 5%. So you can see the escalation in wholesale power cost over the last 3 years, what impact it's had on us. New service construction, we've got budgeted line maintenance and improvement. Most of these are our standard maintenance amounts that we include in each year's budget. We are doing some work at the lakes at Green Valley to try to get ready for some industry to come in there and hopefully be our customers. New bucket truck, updates to SCADA, fiber expansion. We've talked about fiber a couple of times this year. And we do need some new Christmas wreaths downtown. Our Christmas wreaths are falling apart.
On the SCADA OMS, that's the outage management system, is that
Yes.
going to get it full implementation?
The out-of-management system board paid for from previous items which you have approved.
Well, we,
overall, the technology that comes from the field into
Into the OMS system, okay.
And I think this is a continuous item that you see every year, based on new technology and stuff that we have to upgrade.
Georgia Power has a system where a power outage happens, a little map pops up, and you can click on it and give you a reason to how many customers. Are we close to having that available where our customers will see it's an animal or some type of power pole struck?
We'll be very interactive with the customers. We'll be able to see a map, and you'll also be able to see text version of your area, how many customers are out. So it'll be very interactive.
What kind of timeline are you thinking about?
We're looking at the end of August. We're in the mapping process right now, getting the mapping accurate, because you put that in for a while to get that in or in out. So we're in that process, and I would say by the end of the year, we'll have it going on the project.
Will it have a map that says like Circuit 2 or Circuit 5 in terms of, it'll have something so people can actually get an idea of where they're...
And it'll also have some streets, so we'll be able to reference right where they're at. So we'll be able to see the route.
Great, thank you.
Total capital for electric's 2.131. It was actually 2.253 last year, so their capital expenses are down a little bit this year. Solid waste revenue is up 4.4%, and their revenue exceeds their expenses by $416,000.
Way to go, Phil!
The second year in a row that solid waste is out of the hole.
A long way from a negative $1.2 million.
Residential collections up a little bit, commercials up a little bit, yard waste, of course, their revenues are down because of the changes we made in contracting that out. The transfer station's up, roll-off's down a little bit, landfill's up, and recycling fees are up because of the sort line that we will be installing, and we have projected that for 9 out of 12 months, I believe, assuming we're going to get that up and running this fall. So that's not included for the total budget year.
Have we looked at changing the recycling can as far as size with the non-recyclables?
Yes, sir. I believe the last ones we ordered are much lower.
Thanks.
Solid waste expenses increased about 1%. A couple of trucks need replacing, and of course those tires for the loader at the transfer station are quite expensive. And that building over there needs some repair as well. It's gotten in pretty bad shape, so their total capital is $343,000. I told you they're realizing a profit for the second year, and what we're proposing is to transfer half of that and leave half of that with them. So we're proposing to transfer $234,000 and leave them restricted $234,000.
It's been a couple years since I've driven over the transfer station, but that road was falling apart. Is it still in rough condition, or has it been resurfaced?
It was resurfaced 2 years ago, I guess, and that entire industrial road.
So that area's been cleaned up and looks okay.
Okay, the airport, total revenue is a little over $1 million. Operating is $544,000. Intergovernmental is $434,000. As you see, the FAA is paying their share. The Spalding County capital contribution and Spalding County operations contribution is there. Their expenses are up because of the security fencing is in the AIP, the improvement project for this coming year, as well as obstruction. And that's how the split is there for that capital, the FAA portion, the state portion, and then the city and county portion. Those are the only two items in the improvement program scheduled for next year. Stormwater went up about 1%. Again, that's our MCI adjustment. They have $87,000 in their restricted earnings. That's restricted by ordinance. Their expenses are down slightly. The Shoal Creek Regional Detention Pond, which is being funded mainly from the GFA loan. That's the detention pond over at the Mankin property on Solomon Street, and some geomorphology studies for Potato Creek, Shoal Creek, and Cabin Creek are budgeted at $75,000. Golf course, we're projecting operating revenue of $295,000, just down slightly. Expenses went up about $40,000 to $696,000. It's requiring a transfer of $411,000.
Huge loss.
Which is up from $388,000 last year.
Have we looked at I think we talked about a study right before I got here about a place to put monuments for people we want to recognize out at the golf course?
We did. It's going to be over there where the picnic tables are. We're going to build a wall and make an area there where people will actually see them. I wanted to mention the greens. Brand, I understand that some of the greens are not really being taken care of. What is the problem out at the golf course?
Not being taken care of that season. What happened is we went through the same problem as everybody else had in Winterfield, and they're coming back. At the end of the day, we've had camping turned down there 3 times, and we're following the prescription. The prescription is we are guaranteed as long as we stay underneath their direction, they'll just go and all this thing, whatever it is. But what's happened is we go 2 right forms back to back.
Okay,
It wiped out yards all over the...
Yeah,
it did.
My yard's that way too.
Well, it got
For the
a lot
passage.
right in our yard as well. That was,
The club at Shoal Creek.
the club at Shoal Creek is, Well, I just wanted to double check on that because I get a lot of questions about that from the lady golfers and from some of the men golfers. They were worried that we were not going to maintain it after, having the wonderful greens put in.
Oh no. Yeah, we've spent all that money on those greens. We're not going to let them go.
All right, and we still have our good superintendent?
Yes, ma'am. He's been here a while now. We haven't changed superintendents in several years.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir?
Back to the monuments.
Yes,
Is there
sir.
any way I can get an update on that, just something in writing, so that people who are asking me about it, I can present it to them?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure exactly where we are on that project, Dr. Keller. Sir?
We've been working on the greens and obviously
We'll get you a memo. Dr. Keller's stuttering over here, so that means we haven't done anything. So I'll get you a memo on the progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. These golf course numbers are pretty conservative because we don't really know how the club at Shoal Creek is going to impact us. So
Now that that's
they
a
weren't
private
open last.
business, they are doing well. They're really building.
Well, I hear that, but I hear other things too. I hear they're not maintaining it. I hear a lot of complaints about some of the bills not being paid and...
Well, $411,000 out of the taxpayer pocket's a serious number, whether you're a golfer or not. I've had my say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's duly noted.
Incredible waste of money.
Okay, just some other items here. Our tourism advertising and promotions is $20,000. The DDA, their operations is $125,000. We gave them $15,000 this year for facade grants and site acquisition, down from we've been doing $25,000. Main Street operations, $86,000. Welcome Center cost us $68,900 to operate. If you add depreciation in there, it's $111,000, but true operational cost is $68,900. We only anticipate about $10,000 in revenue.
Were we discussing about go ahead and turning the entire building into the archive center or museum?
We have been discussing that, yes, sir. I don't want to make a proposal yet. We're looking at the code section on hotel motel tax, because we do use hotel motel tax transfer to operate, pay some of the operational costs there, and I want to make sure that it's not going to be impacted, or is not going to impact based on the code section that says it has to go to like a conference center type. So I want to make sure that, one, that's correct.
Just $111,000 in depreciation?
Sir?
Depreciation is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Depreciation.
Something like that, yes, sir.
Give us a break. Give us a break.
You get depreciation off?
Decapitate.
Yeah, I can fix that, see?
Depends.
I can deprecate you for my way.
I apologize, but it
It
is
could have
good to
been
know
worse,
that you're
y'all.
looking very closely.
Where were you reading this at when you thought of that?
I forgot where I was. We want to make sure from the hotel motel tax that that's not impacted, and then
We'd get deprecated.
we also had some comments from the directors who, it seems, use that building a lot more than we realized. So I want to make sure that there's some alternatives for the many meetings that are held over there that are not paid for, that are held by staff. So we're looking at that. But I didn't do anything from a budget standpoint on that until we answered all those questions. Okay, our special revenue funds that are also accounted for in our budget, we didn't really put anything in confiscated assets. Hotel motel tax, we're looking at revenue coming in of about $60,000. Of course, our police technology fund went out of existence a couple of years ago when the state changed the law. We are allowed a court technology fund, and we anticipate $25,000 coming in there. And of course, the SPLOST revenue. We mentioned earlier, those are all just basically in and out amounts. So that's the long and short of it. Again, the impact on our employees is significant through the Carl Vincent study. $500,000 of taxes, I think, is significant to our taxpayers. I'm certainly open to questions.
Certainly, I think we're all cheered by a tax decrease. I would think we're all pleased. However, the thought does occur to me a couple things. One is, we have a building across the street down here, the old city hall, that's deteriorating, and we're not preserving it. Also, I do believe we'll eventually have a new airport coming, and there'll be some additional bonding expense probably as we work our way through that. So, not fixing the roof on the old city hall continues to have real negative effects on that building. So, would it be prudent to consider a little smaller tax decrease and fix the roof on the city hall and some things? Now, we all want all the tax relief we can get, but I'm not sure that it might be penny wise and pound foolish to let a building deteriorate.
I think the roof by itself is more than the tax decrease by $40,000, so I don't think you're going, even if you do it by a little bit, I don't think you're going to get close to the cost of that roof. I think we see how SPLOST goes. If that's the project the board's willing to put on SPLOST, I think we should look at that avenue and see how that plays out in November.
How are the votes going on that? Or are people making suggestions as to the SPLOST, our portion?
Alvin, have you looked at the SPLOST survey results lately? Okay, it goes through the end of the month, so we'll tabulate all those responses, I guess, which is the end of this week.
And well, that's all right, we'll find out.
I mean, I think it's critical we use SPOS dollars, whether it comes up in the survey one way or the other. If we're gonna preserve that building, we need to put that as a top priority out of our fair share.
Well, it's nice to cut taxes, obviously, but not if you have to turn around and raise them again to fix something that, and the
Well,
airport, if the airport moves forward, certainly ain't gonna pick up some expense. So, I don't wanna have a big tax cut and then turn around, we're short of money and have to come raise them back, where we could have banked a little, so. I mean, I'm not talking against tax decrease, certainly, but maybe.
It's a 5% cut, which is $260,000, let's say. Considering the negativity that we keep hearing from our comparison of Spalding County being the worst taxed community return on
That's true.
investment, I mean,
Yeah.
we need to show that we're moving forward in a positive direction and giving some relief.
Well, you know, I think that we ought to consider, we carry over, I did not realize until you mentioned that we had $20,000 carried over in commission contingency fund. I think perhaps that's a fund that, if we're very careful with it, could someday be designated for some kind of special project.
We have not used any of our contingency this year. We have not used any of it this year.
Yes, ma'am, we used, I think Martha said we used like 40,000 on the swimming pool and,
Furniture, didn't we?
yeah, 18 on
Where is
furniture.
the swimming pool? Is it, did y'all get it fixed?
That's an ongoing.
Your enthusiasm just overwhelms me.
We have to replace the baffle and the filter, our own expense after we built the new filter. I mean, it's just one thing after another, but that's what we do.
Well, have we had a lot of complaints because it's been closed?
Well, the
Oh, I
swim
thought you
team,
said we usually did it about the 15th of May.
well, the swim team usually starts about the 15th, but they've just been delayed because it hadn't worked.
And they've not put any pressure on you about it?
Much and then have these things that we're really not dealing with.
Hopefully, it'll stay up running long enough for it to be used this summer.
How much is the pool costing us?
It's about 50,000. How much?
The thing is,
But we
That's just-
budget about 50, don't we?
That's just operations though, doesn't include what we have to do, the 40,000 or almost 50 we've spent this year with the replacing the pumps.
Even if we had a new pool, it would still be, it would be 80 a year, but then we're incurring.
Yeah,
Right,
you
no, I mean,
still
instead
have
of-
operation
Just for
expenses.
cost comparison, if there was nothing broken on it, it'd be 70 or 80, but we're having to put in the capital expense every year for 40 or 50. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, you still got lifeguards, chemicals, maintenance, electricity, that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, it's awful to have to open something that you anticipate and expect it to break down in 10 days. I don't see that. I mean, I just really don't. I mean, we do no preventive maintenance on this thing. Is there no preventive maintenance that can be done on it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we
Build
do
a new one.
preventive maintenance on it all the time. It's just old.
Right, it is old.
It's just old and worn out. As much money as we've spent on keeping that thing operating since I've been here, we probably could have built a new
Yeah.
over the 10 years that we've continued to put maintenance in it here.
We can't fix Spalding County.
Any other questions? I mean, Mr. Morrow, I can spend as much as,
No, I'm not.
I mean, there are a lot of
I'm not
things
talking
out
about
there that,
spending more, I'm talking about saving, banking a little more, but,
Phil gave us $250,000.
I know, but my point is, there are a lot of projects like the old city hall building and the airport, and there are a lot of projects that you know, we just kind of prioritize and look at and weigh and try to make a determination. I mean, there are plenty of things out there that we need funding.
And what I'm hearing is, you know, the $500,000 is a great public relations number, obviously, but if we gave a tax decrease and banked a little extra for some of these things, I just question it.
I mean, we start questioning UGA Griffin, 17.5, the archivist, other positions that we keep creating for the greater good of the community, whether it's the pool, whether it's the golf course. Public needs to see one of their governments actually looking at the bottom line of the tax dollars that we're saying we're concerned and we're going to make a difference. We all have our pet projects. We all have our things that we want to keep funding. Some part of the public wants to say, cut all the frills from Main Street to whatever it is. So this is an opportunity for us.
And I want to compliment our department directors because over the last, 4 to 5 years, our operating expenses as far as, the daily operations of all these departments in things like supplies and equipment and maintenance. I mean, we have done everything. Our department directors have done everything possible to cut their operating budgets, and everything we could think of to save money from an operational, day-to-day operational standpoint, we've done. And as you've been able to see the last few years, just our operational costs have remained pretty stable over the last years. There's not much from an operation standpoint that we can do to keep the doors open and cut very much more.
Well, I think you've done a marvelous job, and when people understand that property tax revenues and sales tax revenues have all been falling, yet you live in the budget, so I think it's marvelous what you've done.
Well, and when you look at the $500,000, remember, we have increased utility costs for users, and so people don't complain so much about the tax bill they get as to the increase in utilities. That they, the user fees, and that I get more complaints about what it costs for services than I do about. I don't know that I've gotten any complaints on the tax revenue as far as the ad valorem taxes on our house. And yet, we've worked for 10 years. When Kenny first came, he came from Morrow where they don't have a city tax. And we talked about eventually getting to the point where the city of Griffin didn't have to have a tax on our homes. But we've not been able, we certainly haven't been able to get there. And it is frustrating. $500,000 is not much, but it's kind of like a good faith effort anyway. I mean, it's a drop in the hat. I guess, do you pick that penny up off the street, or do you wait till it gets to be a nickel or a dime to pick it up? So, I don't know.
Better than a $500,000 increase, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'd get complaints if we did that.
We do have a public hearing tonight on the agenda in case anybody who may have seen or heard our presentation has any questions, so we'll have that on the agenda. At the next meeting, the first meeting in June, we have a public hearing as well in case after people have digested the presentation, if the public has any comments. And what we'd like to do is approve the budget at the first meeting in June, since we don't have another meeting scheduled for June. If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to get with me or Marcus, and we'll be glad to try to answer those questions for you.
I do appreciate how it was presented to us, and I love the tablet where you can pull it up and look there, but also print it out, your summary, because then I go back and look at it. So I do appreciate the fact that you make it easy to read and understand.
Thank you.
I think you've done a great job.
Well, it's a team effort. We start on this in January, and it takes us about 5 or 6 months to get all this put together and make it work. So the staff really works hard to get it all together. It's pretty complicated. $108 million with all the various enterprises is pretty complicated.
How much have we saved for not printing it out, which I think it would be something.
We've saved a lot of hair on Angela's head, I know that. I don't know from a money standpoint, but we still print out, 4 copies? Because we have to have those available for the public to review. So we still have to print out four of those books, but it's not like the 10 or 12 that we used to print out. Definitely makes it easier. Okay, if nobody has any other questions,
thanks a lot for all the hard work. We know that y'all worked a great deal on that, and we also know there was a lot of choosing and priorities and cuts that went along in that process too. So we appreciate it. Thank you, Angela, for that.
Make sure you have your new software to make it all easier for you. So. Hopefully.
All right, so we'll move on to the utility service partners.
Yeah.
A couple of administrations back, we were asked to provide look into provide a service for the community to try to minimize their impact. We entered into an agreement with utility services partners. You should have got in your package today a list of the people. We started the campaign last spring, or they started the campaign last spring, and usually it takes about 36 months for what they call full penetration, and usually in a community it's about 35% of the residents will engage in the warranty program. To date, we've had on the sewer line 239 people actually take the warranty program. On the water side, which we just started in the fall, 164. To date, there's been 24 claims, and I guess at the end of the day, what is that? What does it mean? Basically, in a year, that's to date, residents have paid about $34,000 for their warranty program. There's been 14 claims. The 14 claims usually cost anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000, depending on water and sewer and what they've got to do. So basically, the customers have taken the warranty program. At the end of the day, have paid out about $34,000 in the warranties, and the company's paid back somewhere between $28,000 and $32,000 based on those claims. So that's basically in a nutshell. The other that I was asked to explain to you, if you wanted to get out of the program, we give them a 90-day notice, and then you're out of the program. And that's what I have.
Why can't they just send, we get out of it, but they can always just send out letters to folks, can't they? In terms of just open
Not
market?
without coming into the city with support. We've already stopped 3 other folks from doing that. I think, Ms. Todd, if you remember, about 8 years back or 9, we had a major influx, and that's when Ms. Todd was the mayor at the time and said, what can we do about this misnomer coming in? Because there was misrepresentation upon the city's half. They actually copied, borrowed, and stealed our logo and put it on their particular program, and it was not a nationally endorsed program. So Ms. Todd asked me to check into it and see what the cost-benefit ratio would be to the public. And with the National League of Cities and this company here, one of it is you actually, our logo is on their promotional activity as we endorse that program. There's a lot of people that like to do swap, buy, and steal and do some other things out there that are probably not the most scrupulous things, so we went with this program. But we'll be happy to do anything y'all want, but this is the current update on where we're at with this.
Right. Of the 14 claims, the people selected their own plumber?
They don't select their own plumbers. What happens is the company, Utility Services, hires local people that were willing to participate and select in it, and then they send somebody out to fix it.
And
You don't pick and choose your plumber. What we do is they qualify the plumbers in the local area if they want to be part of the program.
All right, walk me through a claim. They contact us?
They don't contact us, they contact the utility part. We have the only activity that we have in it is we get a check every December for 10% of the total number of subscriptions. And unless we've got a problem in the field where we've got to go send a jet vac truck or something to make sure it's not on the city side, we have no participation other than the sponsorship on the letter.
And have we had any complaints about those that have had the claims?
No, ma'am. I've not had a single complaint on the warranty program since we started it.
So other than the fact that Mr. McLemore's name on it,
We're the salespeople. I mean, it's not like they're just sticking a logo on it. It's our letter.
It's your name.
Do we do a
With our name.
sponsorship letter for any other private enterprise?
No, sir, we do not, sir.
Is using the city's name and logo to make money?
Not aware of any other program out there that we do that. This is just through the National League of Cities as a partnership, but we,
Through the National League of Cities, through any other, are we using the city's logo and
no,
to
sir.
let private businesses make money?
No. I mean, that's going back to the very basic conversation, is we're the ones selling it for them. I mean, it's our letter. I mean, they're a blip in the letter about telling you what National League of Cities and this company's name is, but otherwise it's us selling it for them because it's completely staged and framed around a city letterhead.
Right.
With the chairman reminding citizens that you need to take a look at this because this could happen, and then signing off on it. So we become the salespeople for this.
Well, we become their agent or their middle person. That's the reason I asked him, had we had any complaints from the work that had been done? Probably, if you looked at the 403 that have signed up, it's probably been little old ladies and scared older people who have the money to buy this quote. I've always called it an insurance policy. He says it's not. But if there's no foul, I don't see where it's a big deal.
Well, it's up to y'all. I mean, we if you decide this is something.
I don't think it's not so much if it's a big deal or if it's a foul, but if we're going to allow Utility Service Partners, Inc. to send a letter out with the mayor's name on it, using the city letterhead to promote their business, then are we saying that it's okay for us to open it up to any other business that want to send out letters to citizens promoting their business to try and get them 403 customers for their business? I mean, I can think of a number of businesses, from people that want to put roofs on houses, siding, plumbers, anybody. If we're going to allow people to do that, I don't think that's proper.
Well, the one thing we'll say, this has to do with our service lines as well as our water mains. Whether if the city wants to withdraw, that's not a problem. The issue is that the high cost of replacing that service line to the city main is the benefit, and it's a risk.
I think we caused the value of the service to be overinflated to everybody else, because what I can pay for a service line to be repaired has just been overinflated because you've got another company coming in paying what market standard is somewhere else.
I'm not disagreeing with I think what I'm disagreeing with is their method of advertising.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with trying to maintain our lines. I just think when you get into a business of allowing people to use the city's letterhead, to use something they don't own to promote their business, I think you get into a real gray area. And if other people start to do that, where do we draw the line to say, no, you can't come to our city and do that? That's what I'm disagreeing with. If it's going to protect and maintain our lines, of course we need to do it. But we need to send a memo message I speak for one. I mean, I'm just one
Yes, sir.
person that don't think that this is proper. You know, everybody else may agree with it. I don't think it's proper. And I would go on record as saying that we need to do something to make sure the citizens understand that we are not allowing people to use the city to advertise their business.
All you gotta do is tell me to withdraw in 90, I just did this because I was asked to do it. And if y'all have an issue with it, just let me know. We'll send a letter, and in 90 days, the program be
I
over.
did not institute this program. It came about, and we discussed it thoroughly, 3 years ago?
Yes,
And Drew is the one who pushed it through the city commission that it was a good deal, and that we could do it, so.
But that discussion was interesting, but the point was made that the National League of Cities has done this, and that they had a list of the cities participating. It was an extensive list of cities all over participating as a benefit to the average citizen who wanted this insurance. So the fact that there's a company involved makes money or doesn't make money, to me, makes no difference. It was sold as a service, nationwide service through the National League of Cities, and we agreed to do it. Now, if y'all want to end it, that's fine. I don't.
Well, I think that if we,
6-1 after.
you don't have that many customers that have done this, we have 9,000 city customers?
Well, the average, it takes 3 years, their experience, they've been doing this since 2003 to enter into the market, and usually it's anywhere from, let's just say 27 to 37.5% is somewhere in that range.
Maybe y'all missed my point. Again, the project itself sounds good. If somebody wants to buy insurance, my problem is Utility Service Partners, Inc., using the city's letterhead, the mayor, to promote their business as if it's coming from the city. So when the taxpayers receive a copy of this insurance, and it's got Mr. McLemore's name on it, as if Mr. McLemore is saying, hey, this is something you need to do, and you must go with utility services. I'm promoting this. The city commission has voted on this, that this is a service that we're going to use. This has been bidded out. This process has gone, and it will pass muster, and this is what we should do. Man, if that's what happened, I wasn't here. If that's what happened, then so be it. But if another company should come down here and suggest that they want to have the city, and they make a letter, and they present a letter, some plumber comes in here and presents a letter, sends it out to the taxpayers of the citizens of Griffin, and say that Mr. McLemore has endorsed this idea, will you please use me for all of your plumbing, then we're going to have a problem with it. At least I would. I mean, I'm one. I would have a problem with that. So if nobody else has a problem with it,
Or insurance company coming in saying, we endorse this insurance company to give you fire protection or life insurance.
I recommend this. Put it on an agenda and let's vote on this thing.
let's all we need to do is just ask them to send out letters with their mayor's name on it.
I'm just doing what y'all asked me to do 3 years ago. If y'all want to rescind it, we just take and send them a letter and tell them.
It's not rescinding. I think that it's the letter.
The way they market it.
Well, the marketing is part of the program.
Oh.
Without support of the city, we just pull the program back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, if there's
That's the whole point. It's not a big deal.
Right,
It's
so,
true.
I mean, if
It's
y'all
not a big
decide
deal.
this is
but
something.
it causes a slippery
But
slope.
8,800 citizens got a letter with his name on it stating, you need to do this.
Well, they got it with other people,
Yeah, I
with our
understand
names on it too,
Yeah,
and it
it's the
didn't.
same thing, it just-
You got a call from it, and you tell them what it is, they either accept it or they don't accept it. I would say that those 14 people that had claims and that had them, and they were satisfied, were very happy about it.
Right.
But you know, nobody's holding a gun to their head and telling them to do
14
it.
folks already had a problem and said, hey, this is a great way for me to get my.
Y'all just tell me what to do and make it happen.
Just put it on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Put it on the agenda.
Greater.
We'll just put it on the agenda. Thank y'all.
Anything else?
There's a mistake on the minutes, by the way.
Ooh.
I recuse myself, not Mr. Holberg. So I just wanted you, when the minutes come up tonight, that
Okay. All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.